Guten Abend. Uh, this is George Lees, and I'd just like to start with a non-copyrightable tune that was ever so famous when I was a boy, and we used to pretend that we were being soldiers in World War II. Yeah? Holy Moses, I am dying, just a word before I go. If you see a German soldier, and I've forgotten the rest, yeah, but all of it is about blowing everybody to bits in the war, and this video, which is being made by the man that is living in these luxurious environments on a very restricted budget. Yeah, costing £60 a day for the residents. And I'm now going to get you the biggest war criminals in the story. That is the leadership teams on both sides and the prisoners of war that were released into those countries so that they could launch fucking globalism. Oh, sorry, that's swearing. Yeah, that is Churchill's unexpected guests, prisoners of war in Britain in World War II, and it's written by a woman with a beautiful English name called Sophie Jackson. There is the title of the book, Churchill's Unexpected Guests. Remember that Churchill is the biological parent of the Queen of England, and that is the massive hodgepodge of genes that mean that the Rothschilds become the replacement for the Queens of England, and every one of the aristocratic lineages all over Europe are replaced by Rothschild in due course because of the raping of Queen Victoria using date rape drugs, which I know all about, and we will not bore you with that. What would happen if the UK's prison population suddenly increased by 400,000 people? That's what occurred between 1939 and 1948, when thousands of Germans, Ukrainians, not necessarily called Rothschild, and others became Britain's prisoners of war, according to a new book. And you can hear the panic outside, because the regime is still here. The camps where the P.O.Ws were imprisoned have largely but not all disappeared. At one time, hundreds of them were spread across the UK, so there's only 1,500 left. I'm going to tell you every one of them and their location and how it fits into the massive pistic, and the best one I've found so far is Wimbledon. Yeah, right in the fucking heart of London, with all of those fabulous German winners of the tournament being in the same families, and the Duke of Kent awards the prize. He's become very prominent in the town I'm living in, and was working behind the bar last night, his lookalike. Yeah, there is Churchill's unexpected guests, prisoners of war in Britain in World War II. Yeah, and there are still 1,500 on the listings. Let's start with this one. This is a place that I'm fond of because it's in Northumberland, where we used to go to the beaches. And the Amble beach huts on the little shore are likely to be the death camp that was the first on the title with the letter A at the beginning, and Lord Percy running the wars ever since ancient Rome, when he was Perseus the poet of Alnwick. Let me show you who his neighbours are. You're probably familiar with this because of the things that I've published in recent years on my website. There are the legendary fascists that are the Mitford sisters, right next to Amble, in not Alnwick this time, but in Morpeth. Yeah, Nazis all, and two of them were the lovers of Hitler. There they are, with him in his open-topped car. How would the Mitford sisters have, looking back at them? Yeah? And there they are in their ball gowns. Okay, there's their names. Unity, Tom, he's a man, I think, Debo, Diana, Nancy, Pamela, and I think that one's Dorothy. Oh no, that's Diana again. Oh no, that's Diana. I cannot quite see what that one is. And let me show you who they got married to. He's better known as Lord Haw Haw. Yeah, children of Oswald Mosley's fascist black shirts, and all of them are now crowding around me, and it was a terrifying experience in my hometown at the weekend, because in the Kruskies Hotel, that is the massive Christianity scams that allow all of them to release religious and ethnic hatred so they can rationalise the robbing and the killing of all of the innocent people in every war that they engineer. He's Lord Haw Haw, by the way. And there is he making the Nazi signs like the Mitford sisters do too. Let's see if we can see that one. He was married to a Mitford sister. There is Oswald Mosley on their tab. I can't. Oh, it's Pamela, I think, the last one. And there's a Pamela Digby Churchill, and she's, I think, she's the biological parent of Bill Clinton. Yeah, and his supposed nickname when he was appointed as one of the monarchy people, yeah, he is the biological parent. He's the half brother of Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, the nymphomaniac. Yeah, no pictures of that, because all of them are on my website. You can go and you can look up Princess Margaret on Mystique, and you'll see the black men that she used to make love with, two men at the same time. And that is being used as coercible evidence. But let's get back to the war. Yeah, prisoner of war camps in the UK, German P.O.W somewhere in England bring in the harvest. Do you get it? That is the land girls and everything about all of the men being away, and it's maybe just a coincidence, but the current MP in the region MSP, sorry, that I'm living in, was tutored at the Land Girls College that was the making of the film. And she's the most innocent person in the story. Yeah, right then. So, let's now get the lists and show you Amble at the top. So there's every prisoner of war camp in the UK mapped and listed and published by The Guardian, which is why I'm ever so careful about playing songs like If You've Seen a German Soldier. Yeah, all of them were commonplace when I was a boy, pretending that we had guns and using little bits of stick instead. Yeah, this is real death and massive massacres so they can take control of the enemy's territory and their country. Yeah, and that is how the whole of the intel movement has been one of the world's biggest menaces to the concept of freedom and peace. Yeah, and everybody that is in the camps is working for both sides. Yeah, that is the DVD Deutscht thing that I've been reporting ever since I discovered in Greg Hallett's archives that is how Prince Philip became an agent for Germany in England. as a Greek. Yeah, with 10 quid in his pocket when he came to this country in an orange box. Right then, so let's just get to the listing. It's ever so easy to suss that out, and it just happens that coincidentally on the farms where they're preparing food for rationing time, yeah, that is the topic of the Land Girls movie, yeah, they have got an azure blue trailer. That's the usual suspects that run all of the wars, all of the sides, and bankrupt all of the federal banks in every one of those wars, many of which are engineered just to cover up the stealing of the federal banks. For example, the 3 times that occurred in American history. That's the Rothschild family and their azure blue moniker. Right then, let's get to the list. Isn't it exciting? 1,500 people that might be your relatives that could be Nazis. When everything's gone quiet now. And I've had to come here because just before I decided to make the video this evening, there was so much noise in the normally ultra quiet room, and it's actually Boxing Day, and as a philosopher I don't understand the naming of the day after Christmas Day as Boxing Day. Sorry, we cannot now scan down the computer. Oh, there we go. So there is prisoner of war camps in the UK, German POWs somewhere in England, bring in the harvest, photograph, I cannot tell you, but it is a Getty image, and that will entitle them to block the video if they want to be harassed as war criminals. Azure blue Rothschild. Never happened before. Churchill's unexpected guests. Oh God. Right then, down we go. There's Churchill, and when you try and click on the book, it actually crashes your computer. Churchill's unexpected guests, prisoners of war in Britain in World War II. And I better not tell you who the authoress is, because she might get angry, and she could be a residual German soldier too. Right then. So that's not opening, that is the listing of the families that were in Britain as double agents, aka Nazis, and all of my favourite places are on the list. So let's get started. Remember, I used to work in the hospital, in the intensive care units, and in the neuroscience consciousness efforts to understand the molecular basis of consciousness. Yeah, that was Dr. Kelly that was my boss there, and all of my time through my life in London, you're going to learn that almost everywhere I've been in my career was the host to a death camp or a training camp for Nazis that are actually trading with the enemy, which has become ever such a popular story. So there is Ambleside, there is Camp Number 1, Grisdale, Cumberland in England, country house and circa 30 huts, double perimeter fence with watchtowers, all huts demolished. Toft Hall Camp. Now I've started making an archive of this, and I should really start on that and do it, because I've got pictures on it. So there is the website, guardian.com, prisoner of war camps UK data. Yeah, the first one is Grisdale Hall, Cumberland in England, country house, and I don't know how I got the impression. Oh no, it's Ambleside. That's correct. So let me now try and find it on OneNote. Oh no. Which I've now got pictures of the places. So it's part of what I call the shin, and let's now look it up. There it is. Prisoner of war camps. Yeah, lovely, aren't they? Like the Mitford sisters and their massive estates that qualify to become serials on the telly called Downton Abbey. Right then, so this got some pictures in it, and it will make it more interesting for you. People in the story, every prisoner of war camp, there is the BBC homepage. Yeah, that's the Benai birth. There's World War II, People's War, an archive of World War II memories written by the public and gathered by the BBC. There's the German prisoner of war pal who found me 50 years later. That means none. You're getting familiar with that now. People in the story, Patrick Barrett, Willie Reuter, location of the story, Zetten, Holland, London, Yorkshire, Gloucestershire. All of them on both sides through the war for commercial advantage. Yeah, right then. And that is just the first part of my archiving of prisoners of war and their locations. There's Zetten in Holland, London, Yorkshire, and there is Patrick Barrett with Willie Reuter immediately behind Patrick and other P.O.Ws at Upper Hill Farm, Prestbury in 1947 or 1948. Yeah, and they're still using steam tractors by the looks of it. The story has been contributed by the People's War, by the BBC Learning Centre, on behalf of Patrick Barrett with his permission. During the war, my parents lived and ran Upper Hill Farm on the hill overlooking Cheltenham Racecourse. So wherever you've got vast tracts of land, there tends to be a prisoner of war camp at Prestbury. Towards the end of the war, they had some German prisoners of war who worked on the farm. I was a very little boy. Yeah, that's quite innocent, but that is the name of one of the biggest news people, and that is the Dutch Reuters company that release all of the Rothschilds' false news that allows them to evade the accusation that they are war criminals. Right then, and there is the camps at the race courses. Yeah, and there's only less than 200 of those ones. There's Morton on the Marsh, where Sean Maguire used to live, my old mate, in reporting such things. Yeah, and there is Ripon and the northern camps, and Ripon is a racecourse in Yorkshire, I believe. Food rations in all the camps were in short supply and guarding very strict. After a while the prisoners were used for farm work. Now for the first time we had contact with the English population. My school English helped a lot. On the big farm of Richard Wagner of the Valkyrie myths, I met a girl, Oxford student, immune from bombing student, C.I. Fisher Lowes, who very kindly organised a dictionary for which helped me a great deal during my imprisonment. I still use it today. That is No Bombing, Oxford and Cambridge, and the dismembering of my website with all of the story of why the bombing stopped there, because that is where the chancellors and the prime ministers used to live in safety. The answer restricted to only, and I learned that my relatives of home, now in the Russian zone, were still alive. To ease boredom in a camp, I needed a pocket knife to make toys, and that is the pocket knife that when I went into Durham, Durham has loads of these camps, by the way. Yeah, and that is the courts at Durham, who, when I went in to look at legal proceedings for real, they confiscated the knife, and when I left the building I asked for my knife back and they refused to give me it. They still have it. They are Nazis in County Durham, and we'll see what the camps are called later on. Yeah, Gloucester, Quedgeley, here we had to stay in camp. We overcame boredom with nightly breakouts. On one of these I met a nice English girl whom I met frequently thereafter, always at night. When the German camp foreman heard of this, I was transferred on to Tewkesbury and Newton. Sorry, this is a bit boring compared to the list. I think we'll just leave it. Okay, let's now go to Hawick, one of my favourite places, because we used to get massacred there by the rugby team, and that's the place that is called Stobbs Military Camp. Let me explain to you that this is a global way of stealing the world, because when I was working for what has become the best university for research in New Zealand, the Vice-Chancellor there was from Stobbs in Hawick, which is a military camp. Sometimes they're called death camps. Yeah, sometimes if you're very well up in the opposition side, they become the route to the throne, and that is the way that the Windsors got there out of Germany. Right then, let's have a look now at the full list, and there is the charitable operations that are now run in Hawick to cover up the fact that all of them are squirrels. Yet they're war criminals for profit, like the families that are Britney Spears, and that is Hitler's second in command after the man had fled to Hamilton, that was Rudolf Hess. Spent his life in the prisons being looked after by his German relatives on the guard room. Yeah, and that is the Porridge comedy and everything that is a parallel for this. All of it happened right through the war and World War I too. Right then, so let's go to the top and let's see if there they are. Lovely pictures. That is Stobbs just above Hawick, where my favourite family in the world, because they were my uncles and aunties, called the Raeburns, used to live. Just outside Hawick, and that is where the TEVIOT River Valley becomes smaller and smaller in terms of the river, but in the context of trading with the enemy, that is where Queen Victoria had her first and only legitimate baby in the TEVIOT River Valley, across on the Carlisle side. That's where the baby was born. That is blind Prince George of Cumbria and Teviotdale, that turned out to be the bigamous marriage when Prince Albert married Victoria, because that was Victoria's only true marriage, to the blind Prince of Hanover. Yeah, it's absolutely sordid, and all of it is so that Donald Trump and the Germans that are now in control of the whole of Europe in Windsor Palace, and in the banks all across the world, centred now in Frankfurt, which is the hub for one of the 5 arrows for Rothschild. For nearly 60 years, hundreds of thousands of young men used the facilities at Stobbs Camp in the Scottish borders to train for war. Now the bleak, wind-swept hills lie as silent witnesses to all that passed before them. That is why the rugby teams play in it's something green, and it's associated with Germany all the way through. They play in Mansfield, which is the same name as Scone Palace, and, and they are originally the Nazis that were captured in wartime. Only in fading photographs can the casual onlooker hopes to glimpse some of the spirit of the camp and those who passed through it. Yeah, there it is. 1937 is when the Shin actually took place big time, and the massive plot to take over Germany and England was launched at that time, with the sending of the Bush family and the families that are the sheriffs. Let me show you them, sitting with George W, having planned all of the takeover of Europe. And there is the august families that were eventually named Bush. There's deathbed confessions, and we'll see the launch of the Shin and the takeover of every European nation by the Nazis, in the diasporas, and there's pictures at the top, I believe. Yeah, there they are. Okay, that is the Hungarian political leaders. That's that little guy there, the Hungarian king. Oh no, he's Yugoslavia, King Peter II. There is Skorzeny, Hitler's assassin. Over 7 foot tall. Yeah, all of them planning the takeover of the whole world, with Great Britain en route to America. And let's get the Bushes now. Yeah, there's Nikola Tesla, and there are the George Sheriff, that's George H.W. Herbert Walker Bush. And there is Hitler and his bodyguard, Skorzeny. Yeah, quite a substantially tall fellow, don't you think? And they've got the Iron Cross on their uniforms like the Brits, because all of it is just to massacre the poor people and to enrich the munitions manufacturers that are fighting for both sides, that just happen to be called Tyson, like the boxers that you've become familiar with as the cover for Fritz Tyson and his murderous families that trade with the enemy and then create the American presidential bloodline. And I just wish we could see the little family pictures of the Bushes. There they are. Isn't it lovely? They've even got colour photography in 1938. According to Otto Skorzeny, pictured is the Sheriff family and a few friends circa 1938 holding Mother Sheriff's hand. Which one is she? Oh, there she is. And that's Martin Bormann holding her hand, and you might have heard of him before as a war criminal. And there is Mengele, who's a kind of mental eugenics war criminal at the back. And he's got a baby on his lap, and he may be conducting an experiment. Anyway, let's not speculate. So, prisoner of war camps. We've done only one, I think. No, two. We've done Amble and Hawick. Yeah, in Linton Green. That's just one of the bowling clubs. Yeah, and the rugby club play in German Green in Mansfield, which is the name of the resident for the McAlpine families that have stolen the whole world by falsifying a man called Jesus, who's nothing to do with the deities that have been written out of the protocols of Zion that were planned by the Nazis, yet that are the from Göttingen, that's the Göttingen 7, and they are philosophers and plan the launch of the new Protestant religions that were a must if you wanted to be the Queen or the King in England and not to have your head cut off for being a Catholic. All of that actually happened. Like the Irish potato famine and every response that they make to get rid of the hungry eaters. Right then, this site was constructed by Derek Robertson. Please contact Stobbs Military at AOL.com. Yeah, it's still a military place. Yeah, and my boss at the University of Otago was born in the tiny little village on the top of that hill. And that's why he's the boss at Otago, because all of them are imperialist fascists sent there by the British Royals, who are actually German royals. Right then, and there's the joke about the almost extinct species that is the original Scottish incumbent. Yeah, that's the red squirrels, and that is the squirrels that are the icons for the earliest bankers run by the Spears in Germany. Right then, we've only had 2 people on the list named, so let's find the full list. And let's find it with the pictures, because that gets really embarrassing for them in the course of time, but none of them have yet appeared at Nuremberg. Right then. So I apologise, I cannot, for 1,500 people, I cannot illustrate the families that are involved every time, but I'll try my best, and we can look for the highlights in those families. Yeah, Nazis all. Grisdale Hall, Ambleside, Cumberland, yeah, Country House, and circa 30 huts. Yeah, next one is Toft Hall Camp at Knutsford in Cheshire, next to the Duke of Westminster. Yeah, that's Britain's richest man, as was, now passed on. But I believe, like the Rothschilds, he's learnt the trick to die early and to report it to Rupert Murdoch, so they can pretend that they don't have to pay taxes and death duties. Yeah, that's the richest man in Britain, with the massive tracts of Mayfair in his properties. 20 huts, guards compound, 58 within the prisoners' compound, enclosed by a double perimeter fence with guard towers for the double agents in both sides for profit. And there is Woodhouse, not PG necessarily, and their camp is Woodhousel E Camp, Milton Bridge in Midlothian in Scotland, where the Hearts and the Romanovs now rule the roost at Hearts, where they stole Hearts Football Club, and all of it was reported under director numbers to me, and that is the families that also stole Russia. Yeah, the Romanovs that replaced the genuine Tsars that were the real Romanovs, and all of their territory was stolen because they sided with the Yank that was Andrew Jackson, who did not want to give up his central banks like the Romanov Tsars. Yet the Tsars are now called Tsar Romanov Nikolaevich Rothschild, and that is Nikolaevich for the death camps in Nikolsburg. Yeah, right next to Treblinka. There is Oldham now, Lancashire, that's John of Gaunt country, and all of the descendants that descend to Trump and Hillary Clinton on the same bloodline tree, with the Roddenroths and all of the Germanic names that are the Nazis, yet that are even in the Air Force One movie, and all of the Nazi places that Donald and his family and the Roddenroths and the Trump Hellers have lived in, large cotton mill and associated weaving sheds, etc., with additional huts. See camp number 176. Oh my God. Oh, I think that people that advise me want me to start at the bottom with Jim Murphy. Yeah, the former Chancellor for Mrs. Thatcher when we went to Argentina. Oh no, that was a... Sorry, that was a Hamilton. Oh, sorry. And they're beginning to chant outside on Boxing Day, and I don't know what it means. Let's show you Jim Murphy. He's been in battles with Pope Francis, who's now the richest man in the world, on the committee. Oh, sorry, no, Pope Benedict was his enemy, I think. Yeah, one of them was, and that is the blowing up of the Clutha pub in Glasgow, where he was the political representative, and that is him the night that he had blood on his collar because he was there 5 minutes after the bomb went off, which was supposed to be a plane coming through the roof, under which grows the tree of life from the Grimm brothers' output. They're German authors and philosophers, by the way. Right then, so, sorry, it's quite a messed up video so far, and we've only got 2 camps in. Poor Hawick, they got all those massive biblical floods, and all the German families that are actually called von Renwick in the ancient days, when they were Austrian families, were flooded, and they had to wear their waders to find their way through their own home. There are some of the legendary places that become the death camps and the training places for the financial people, that all of whom were sent from Germany for obvious reasons. Most of them survived in parachute escapes from planes that were sent to be crashed. Yeah, and all of the people were sent to infiltrate the schools. Yeah, and the that is the Loxley Hall camp, and that is in Sherwood Forest, Staffordshire, presently used as a school. Let's get to the top. Oh, there's Tootingbeck Road, London, Southwest 17. That is Woolwich, where I used to live when I was a student at Thames Poly. That's Baroness Blackstone's land. Yeah, she's a dangerous, dangerous, vengeful woman. There is Dalmahay Camp, Kirknewton. That is where I spent the first year of my life after I was booted out of the house by my wife from Chipping Norton, that I bought when she owned a debt pool of £4,000 on the car that she had not yet paid for. Yeah, that's Miss Valerie Jane Lees, née Hancock's Mrs. Lees. Total shame, and all of my boys have been stolen from me, and they will not speak to me because they are unaware that the doctor that my wife commissioned to section me, yeah, trained as a policeman, and his colleague trained as the cover-up for the story of mass sectioning that is to cover up the biggest bank in world history and the stealing of that by Prince Charles and Lord Jacob Rothschild. Yeah, and that is why my wife went through with the divorce. Yeah, and she's in MI6, and that is Dalmahay Camp in Kirknewton, where I used to live in a safe house run by one of the nicest men in this story, but I believe that he will be descended from the Dukes of Buccleuch, from the appearance of his father, who's just the love child of the Duke of Buccleuch and one of his doppelgangers, and the real Duke is in a wheelchair for almost all of his life. Yeah, and that is Dalmahoy, the camp at Kirknewton that was an airbase, so that they could actually land and let the people off that were going to become the double agents, and that is where Johnny Cash was alleged to have been through the whole of the Lend-Lease fundraising of that war. Johnny Cash is a descendant of Henry VIII, and both of his wives are from different branches of Henry VIII's bloodline. There is Oxhay Lane camp in Uxbridge, Hatch End, and that is Middlesex in England. Standard type site. Bit boring, isn't it? There's the Ripon racecourse one. Yeah, the Piezo icon, that's the Piezo police for 2,000 years of abuse, and that is the Piezo name for their icon for the whole of the history of their world conquest is the horse. There's the racecourse training camp at Ripon in Yorkshire. Yeah, where the red flag fought against the white flag, or the roses as the wars were called. There is Scriven in Yorkshire again, camp number 211, and there, sadly, in my hometown, is Sunlaw's camp in Kelso. Yeah, that is my hometown, and Sunlaw's is a farm just outside it in Roxburghshire. Yeah, and there are the Welsh families, Monmouthshire in Gwent, Wales, Pabbo Hall, Llandudno, and there is George Street in Chatham in Kent, where the Duke of Kent, yeah, is in the royal family, and he used to give, I forget what the earliest Boris was that won the tennis event at Wimbledon, the Duke of Kent, that is the double agent for Windsor, yeah, and they've got body doubles in Coldstream, and he was threatening to vomit on the customers in the pub in Coldstream last week, and now he's behind the bar that I was in last night. Yeah. And there is Whitecross Camp in Cornwall. That's the Arthurian legends that are the massive piss take. Yeah, and we've run out of photos, but there's some across there on some bigger issues. That is Woolwich, and the street that I used to live in. And that's why they had the Woolwich Terror, and that's the source of one of the death camps. Prisoner of war camps, because not many of them are at risks as double agents. I think it's going to be quite boring. There's another one in Edinburgh, in Midlothian, Hetton House in Wooler, just down the road, north of Amble. There's another one, Wooler Camp, Brewery Road. The other one is in Chatham in Wooler. That's two in a tiny village in Percy's, Northumberland. 2,000 years of warmongering for the Percys of ancient Rome. There's Sunlaws in the Kelso farming camp listings. Former German prisoner visits Kelso. I don't know if we'll get jailed if we release his identity. A former German prisoner of war returns to the Scottish borders to the 87 was held at Sunlaw's house now the Roxburgh Hotel near Kelso, in 1945. That is the house that was owned by Guy Innes Kerr, and one of the most deviant women in Borders history, that is Lady Jane Grosvenor, who's a billionaire in Cheshire, and that is her brother, that is Cavendish Grosvenor. Yeah, that is the Duke of Westminster, who owns the richest part of the Monopoly Board. And his family have been masters of the horse ever since they fled, and took up residence in Britain. In Cheshire, in the places that are named after the Formula 1 drivers, and that is the Eccleston. The whole of it is a cover-up for every sin that they have committed for cash and land, and even religious position. Pope Benedict, Pope Francis, and the largest landowners in the world, because they used to rent God's land on behalf of the Vatican. And all of them descend from that bloodline that is the actor that plays the devil's advocate, that is Al Pacino. That is Lord McAlpine in Scotland, and the friends of the royals that have their profits in Switzerland, and that is Prince Charles and Camilla with the companies called Dalek, and all of that is the launch of the sectioning team that is Dr. Ian Fingland and his assassinating colleague that is Dr. Basil Switzer, because the Bank of International Settlements that my family does not understand, which is why the whole of them have deserted me, that is, none of them will even tell the truth about their Facebook pages, because they think that they're embarrassed by their parent when they understand the truth of what Lord Jacob Rothschild and Prince Charles were up to in 1937, when they actually stole the Bank of International Settlements. It's part of the globalization profit stream that is Basel. And that is the name of the second sectioning doctor. And he drinks in this pub, and his body devil that is the Basel Switzer, because the bank is in Switzerland, in Basel, the biggest city in that country. And I used to work there as a drug discoverer, trying to save lives, Dr. Ian Fingland, who tried to assassinate me and took my son to the Super Bowl in London at the same time as they were trying to steal all of my assets and all of my house, and that was what they accused me of financial neglect. They took my son Archie to the Super Bowl. Dr. Ian Fingland, my would-be assassin, commissioned to that role by my wife, and I don't know whether or not she understands that there is a Bank of International Settlements and that was the reason that they tried to top me, but she must know it now, and that is Miss Valerie Jane Hancock's, that I was gullible enough to marry into, and to think that I would be able to raise my children in a decent and moral way. Son-in-law's prisoner of war camp in Kelso, it was owned by Guy Innes Kerr, and that is Lady Jane Grosvenor, one of the richest people in the world, that ran it and then sold it to the Nazis that are the Schloss line from Germany. And that is the Nazis that were trading with the enemy and were Krupp's and Tyson's companies, and even the Nerve Gas Company, their adverts for AG Farben in Frankfurt, in the massive buildings that are the parody that they, as the Rothschilds, or the Bears, which Rothschild called themselves in Frankfurt, yeah, they have the temerity to make the most lethal nerve gases in Frankfurt, where the European Central Bank still is, that they own, yeah, and the shape of the building is a part of the sun god with its rays in the architecture. It's absolutely sick, and their adverts proclaim that they can kill 200 million inmates in death camps, in their case, yeah, unless they are trading with them as the enemy, like all of the camps that we've so far profiled in Britain. Yeah, and it's quite embarrassing that Kirknewton is the hometown for all of those people that were prepared to kill for the owners of the massive mansion in that place that is the Earls of Morton. Yeah, that is the man, one single person, who was the Batman for Winston Churchill in World War II. Desmond Morton was also the Batman for Butcher Haig in World War I, and that is the massive massacre, and the gods nearly got him because he's alleged to have an injury with a bullet wound in his heart. Yeah, they own Dalmahoy. We've already seen that, and that is right next door to my safe house, in inverted commas, run by the Duke of Buccleuch that are in Dalmahoy, and almost every one of the massive mansions all over Scotland, and that is the Buccleuch and Queensberry bloodline that sold Scotland into the United Kingdom. Right then, former German prisoner of war visits Kelso captivity site, yeah, which is the Roxburgh Hotel near Kelso. Mr. Hasselt was moved around camps across Britain before ending something. Let's keep going down. There's the picture that we started with. Yeah, and the Rothschilds never get a bad word. There's military hospitals, there's the Woolwich camps, yeah, that will be Blackheath's rugby club that is not allowed to be tinkered with, because it is that is the icon for fascism, and every one of the owners of Blackheath Rugby Club, where I played my rugby in London, have got Rolls Royces. You should have seen them at the AGEN for the club. And there is Woolwich, where I used to walk from to get to training, yeah, at that rugby club. Yeah, and that is the Francis families, and I don't know whether or not they're related to Pope Francis, yeah, but they are one of the nicest families in this story. Yeah, not in a camp, but right in the heart of fucking Woolwich. And there's Woolwich Common, yeah, and the icons for the Egyptians that are all over the world, because they believe that they are the descendants of God in Egypt. And there is the massive military establishments in Woolwich that mean that Gunner Rigby was killed there as part of the joke in the London Terror, because Gunner Rigby, yeah, was knifed by Aberdawali, and Aberdawali has hundreds of registrations on the board of the HSBC Bank in Woolwich. In the centre of London this time. But the terror occurred in Woolwich because I was trained there with Commoner Kate's mother. Yeah, all of them are goldsmiths, and that is the families from Austria and Bavaria that are still in charge of the British monarchy. Yeah, now living in rural parts of London, right next to Windsor Palace, which has been in French possession since William the Conqueror had it built, just like the same design as Falaise Castle on the Normandy Peninsula. It's a massive scam, and all of it is done in the world's richest places with the most military that they have to get to defend themselves and to get rid of the poor people that are the indigenous nations that live in every land that is conquered in World War I and World War II. And that includes the American revolutions and the massacring of all of the pagan Indians in that country, George W. Bush. Yeah, I think we're going to have to make this in two halves. Yeah. So there's the BBC homepage again. And there's the Hawick. Let's just keep going and see whether or not the batteries run out before the airspace. Right then, and remember, it's the day after Christmas, and I'm paying £60 a day to be in the safe house. Yeah, and it is quite disturbing what you learn about even the owners of this place and their history, and it's quite obvious that they know exactly what I'm doing, and that's why I've had to make back into this room tonight, because the noise in the other places in the building would not allow you to make a video, and they can read the future, and that allows them to plan how they obfuscate the news that's going to be released in inverted commas. Yeah, and it's the same in Kelso. Everyone is a double agent. I believe that the real winners of the war were the Germans, and all of them have now taken the roles of the English, and that is Lord Sanderson, and all of the Walter Scott families that are from the European continent, and that is everyone that changed their name after World War I and the war crimes inquests. Yeah, that is Vaughan, this, that and the other, Jim Renwick, Vaughan Renwick of Hawick, and blind Prince George of Cumbria and TEVIOT is the only legitimate King of England ever since Queen Victoria got shagged by him in secret, and that is why the gods made him blind. Right then. So that's just the bigger pictures in this other column. There is Sunlaw's Camp in Roxburghshire, Pabbo Hall in Llandudno in Carnarvonshire, in Gwynedd in Wales, Gwynedd. There's Racecourse Camp at Ripon. There is Oxhay Lane, Axbridge Road, Hatch End. That is the name in my favourite movies of the family that were George Bailey's wife. Yes, that's her maiden name. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. And it is really quite exciting to be fighting against the Nazis, even all these years after the war is over. You now get the function of the Great Escape teams to penetrate the whole of the monarchy and the aristocracy of all of the participant nations into the planning of how they massacre their poor troops. That's Butcher Haig, and the very apt naming of that man. He was fonder of his horses than he was of his troops. And that is the Haigs that are married into my favourite bloodline, the called Cassie of Hesse-Cassel. Yeah, Dalmahoy Camp at Kirknewton, where the airbase is that allows them to touch down as double agents. And there, right next door, is the Earl of Morton, and we've just profiled his role as the advisor in World War I to the leader of the English armies, that is the British armies, that is Butcher Haig, and in World War II, that is Winston Churchill, the Queen's dad. Oh, sorry. So there we're now to Bristol, and that's Gloucestershire and the River Avon. And there is Newland's house, Tooting in London, where I used to live in the boarding house for Mr. and Mrs. Francis, in SW17, right next to Woolwich, and that is where the death camp was. There is former heavy anti-aircraft battery in Lancashire. Once again, John of Gaunt's links to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Melland Camp, Sandfold Lane, Gorton and Manchester. The man is Arius Piso, by the way. That's Man City, Man United and Mannheim, where all of the negotiations for Hitler that meant that Hitler did not come to Britain. He instead went to Czechoslovakia, massacred 1.5 million people in St. Petersburg for the oil wealth that was in Russia and Czechoslovakia. Millions of barrels per day. And that's why that decision was made in Morpeth in the railway truck. That's called the Mannerheim Treaty, and that is the man that is Arius Piso who faked the Bible. Potter's Hill, High Green, Sheffield, Maesden. Let's see if there's any more pictures. There's Locksley Hall for Robin Hood of Nottingham Forest. Played by Errol Flynn, and even his family are that is Errol Flynn, but the war crimes are part of no, I can't remember that story. There is Stansbury House, Stanbury, Spencer's Wood in Reading, where they booted me out of the interview. And the University of Reading is in vast tracts of land that will have been the Stansbury House camp, Spencer's Wood in Reading. It was so expensive to live there that they could not afford to have people to work in the local businesses. The escaping habit, Joseph Oma, Stallagluft. I can't read the number, it looks like 333. A nice little earner. And they booted me out of the interview. And here's some more information. And that's Remembrance Sunday, German prisoner of war camp, and that is back to Wotton prison of war camp. Right then, so there's Devon, Welton House, Weltonborough, Burton Beverley, that will be the Beverley Hillbillies and everything that is buffoonery in fucking Hollywood. Huts formerly sited Woodland, east of House, see camp number 264. There's Devon, L. Burton in Plymstock. There is Winsford, Devon again, that's heaven in the Bible story, for St. Boniface of Frankfurt, and the places where Air Force One used to get refueled in the movie about Harrison Ford, being kidnapped. There is Coxhoe Hall, Camp Coxo, County Durham. Yeah, that's why the Light Infantry Museum has got all of the jokes about I've been shot to pieces, please send me a new clean pair of underpants, I am now dead. Yeah, all of it is the massive piss take of that place and the stealing of my penknife, because I was inquiring about how the law and war crimes work. Yeah, that's Racecourse in Warwickshire in England, precise location not identified. There was a large camp at SP, nor is there an explanation what SP means. There is Bison in Huntingdon House, Camp St Neots in Cambridgeshire, which was, like Oxford, immune from bombing. There is Serlby Hall Camp, Serlby Blythe, Nottinghamshire, England, Carlton Hall, Colton in Lindrick, then Ruskin Avenue in Kew Gardens for the British Royals, and all of their official biological projects, and the naming in Latin of every plant and species in the world. Yet as they continue to kill off everything that becomes rare species, see the pictures of the royal family, the dead elephants, the buffaloes, and the tigers at their feet. Northamptonshire Camp Battle, that's in Sussex, in England, precise location not identified, given for Norman Hust's Stephen's Crouch at Battle. Yeah, and there is Newton Camp, Newton Scales, Kirkham in Lancashire for John of Gaunt and Hilary and Donald. Boar's Head Camp, Walgerherton, Nantwich, once again in Cheshire, like the Duke of Northumberland's riches. But you must not forget that he owns still, because he's not dead, he owns Mayfair in London. Yeah, and the place that is Pimlico is his too, with the letters P and I at the beginning. There is the former heavy anti-aircraft battery at Boar's Head, Walgerton in Nantwich in Cheshire. There is Castlethorpe in Brigg in Lincolnshire, 39 huts arranged on the west and north boundaries of Castlethorpe. So I should have shown you my favourite place for the internment camp, that was Kirknewton, and we might find the pictures of that further down. Okay, there is Ministry of Works at Swanscombe Street. That's the combs for the busy bees of ancient Rome that have run the world this way by fleecing every country they've met since they left Rome, and that is why the Bushes called their house in Maine Vesuvius. Hornby Hall, Hornby Street, High Street, Nissan huts. Yeah, all of it is that is what I was going to tell you when I went to Cumray in Strathmore, and went to the most earthquake prone place in Britain. That is Cumray. That is the joke about an ejaculation by the gods, and that is the sun god Ra, and that the reason why that is the most earthquake prone place in Britain is that is home to the death camps. And I might not even have put that into let's see if we can find it in the pictures. Wessex Rules, Scotland's New Encyclopedia. There's Sholto Douglas and the Morton family again, and the naming of Sholto. That's the Douglas clan. Yeah, that is the massive massacres that were run by the Earls of Morton from Dalmahoy. Yeah, Croft, you need to come clean. Yeah, all of them are lookalikes for your dad, who you pretended to hate. Sholto literary meaning Douglas clan. There's the Duke of Queensberry and the Douglas and Buccleuch Steele of the United Kingdom. Douglas and Montague, Douglas Scott family tree, Dukes of Queensberry and Marquesses of Queensberry. James Douglas, 2nd Duke of Queensberry, and the launch of the United Kingdom and the buffoonery that we still have. Yeah, monarch is Anne, and that is the beheading of all of the other Stuart lineage. Yeah, and let's now get to, there's Canool Hill, another one of the death camps, this time in the places where I used to live, near Perth. Yeah, and it was just less than an hour along the road, and all of it is absolutely massive, and that is where all of the religious battles were fought, Protestant against Catholic, against Episcopalian, and on it goes. Right then, Canool Hill, Stobbs military camp. Let's see if we've got pictures. Yeah, there's even more pictures of the camps in Hawick. Isn't it lovely that you can keep people like that, train them up, and then they can become on your side in the next war, or they can become your local councillors in the enemy's side in the war that brought them to Hawick. And that is the estate that my Chancellor at the University in Dunedin, all of it is run by the Queen of England, and that is the Maori land holdings that have all been taken from them. Yeah, and because they were cannibals when the British arrived, it becomes the same as the Robinson Crusoe story, and they look as if they're barbaric, so they have them massacred. Yeah, that's why the Chancellor of my university, the Vice Chancellor, the head of our department was the Dean, and that's why he was from that place in Hawick. And when he told me that, I had no idea that it was actually a war camp. It's on the road to Carlisle, where blind Prince George of Cumbria was born. Yeah, that is the bigamous marriage that was then the marriage of that woman, Queen Victoria, yeah, to the other person that had been picked by Rothschild, because the story is now out. That is the hidden King of England and the assassination of the true son of Queen Victoria, yeah, and her man from TEVIOT. Yeah, there is oh no, sorry, we've been here before. Let's see if we can. Hyde Park internment camp. Yeah, right in the fucking heart of London. Yeah, and there it is. Yeah, with the towers and all the icons towering above them to show that, and there is the terror that they launched with the IRA Hyde Park bombing. Yeah, because all of them know that I'm going to be placed on this earth to tell all of the stories. IRA Hyde Park, there's the dead horses, you see, so that all of the people